Well, good afternoon, MLS listing subscribers, and welcome to another edition of MLS Listings Live. I guess I'm so excited because, boy, do we have some great guests for you today. And we're going to start off with my good friend, my work colleague, Michelle Ronco. If you could come on the screen with me, that would be great. Because Michelle, although she's my guest host, she brought a guest with her. So Miranda,
Mark.
if you, there she is. Hello, Michelle.
Hi, Mark.
How are you?
Good.
Hey, you have brought an absolutely special guest on MLS Listings Live. I'm going to give you a big thank you for that, but I want to get him out here right away because we have a lot to talk about. So while you're bringing your guest out, I wanted to give just a small introduction. Dr. Elliot Eisenberg, PhD, is the chief economist for Graphs and Laughs LLC. That's a Miami-based economic consulting firm, and which serves a variety of clients across the United States. But Dr. Eisenberg has also been published widely in such features Bloomberg, Business Week, Bureau of National Affairs, Forbes, Fortune. He's sort of all over the place, and great to have him on our show. So I'm going to let you bring him on from there, Michelle.
Yeah, we see him jump on here. Hi, Dr. Eisenberg. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm great. Thank you. Thank you both. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Mark. Pleasure.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. For all of our subscribers out there, Dr. Eisenberg has been working with us for some time now, and so as we bring stats to you, he helps us add some color to things that are happening. So his PhD in economics is very helpful in that regard. But to come in and say, here's what's happening, here's some of the reasons why, perhaps some expectations. So some of the things that Mark and I don't do when we're out visiting offices or talking to you guys on our monthly videos, we are talking to Dr. Eisenberg about his thoughts and getting some information. So we're super glad to have you here. Really thankful you did this for us. And our plan, Dr. Eisenberg, is just to ask some questions and jump right in.
Well, I've got some answers. I guess who goes first, right?
Right. Wonderful. So, to start off, I think the big question in a pandemic, I was going to say the middle, hopefully the middle end, I don't know. But we have had what was looking like a fantastic year in the Bay Area, real estate wise, really change very quickly. You've seen the numbers, what could you say about, Northern California and how we in the, Bay Area fare against our Southern California, against our neighbors? What would you say about our particular real estate market?
Wow. So Northern Cal versus Southern California. I think Southern California probably gets hit harder than you do, is my guess, because there's more tourism in Southern California. It's a different, the milieu is different, right? It really is. Northern California is a little bit more high tech, and as a result, they can work from home a little bit more. Of course, house prices are much more expensive in NorCal. They're expensive enough in Southern Cal, but they're even more expensive in NorCal. But all else equal, I think NorCal comes out of this looking a little healthier, a little bit stronger. If you move to your east, however, they do probably, it depends what time frame you look at. Nevada is really getting hit pretty hard, right? They're a tourism industry. So Las Vegas is really getting hit very hard. So they're one of the worst places to look at. Them, maybe New Orleans is worse, because they've not only got tourism, but they have energy as well. At least Nevada doesn't have any energy. Southern Cal has a little bit of energy, right? There's a little bit in Los Angeles and some in Kern County, but that's not a very big driver of their economy. So I think Northern Cal looks pretty decent. And importantly for you, it's the stock market performance that really matters a lot. There's so much in initial public offerings that go on and secondary offerings, people getting paid in stock options. And if the market does badly, then the options are are no longer above the strike price, and they're out of the money, and that's a real problem. But your market, like everybody else, was on fire in January and February, and things were just spectacular. There was this massive shortage of inventory. Everything was coming up roses. It was going to be a great year. Prices were up, and then suddenly, bam! You go into lockdown very early in California. To your credit, at some level, you can argue, but number of deaths went way down really fast. Your hospitals weren't overwhelmed, unlike on the East Coast. The West Coast in general, Seattle and Washington State also, and Oregon also earlier. that means your sales are going to be bad. You know, contracts signed in March are going to be crummy, and they're going to be crummy in April as well, and they're going to be crummy to some extent in May also. So it's going to take you to July, or you know this data better than I do, how many months it'll take before you get rid of all these bad contract months. So nationally, sales might do a little better, might turn up a little bit better than they turn up before they turn up in California, only because your lockdown was earlier, longer, and more serious. And sales, realtors weren't allowed to show homes initially when the lockdown came down originally. They were only deemed essential workers a little bit after the lockdown began, if I'm not mistaken. So California has a couple special cases, not unusual as in California. You know that.
Wow. I mean, there's some hope in there, Mark. I mean, we're out with offices. I mean, the important part, Dr. Eisenberg, is that Mark and I visit a lot of offices virtually these days, but we're always meeting with agents, and they're just looking for that information that kind of sets us apart, or talking to sellers or buyers of information that, not to paint a rosy picture, because certainly we all understand the gravity of the solution of what's happening, but to give them a sense for a bounce back, like a delay potentially in the market versus a decline, so to speak.
Right. And you see that if you compare new home sales to existing home sales, that's become a pretty good measure. And I 2 months ago, I would have thought new home sales would have really fallen off a rock and done really, really badly. But the data surprised me to some extent. It looks like new home sales nationally hit the bottom in March. And in April, they actually went up a little bit. And I think that they're probably done, because March for new home sales, that's contract signed in March. And in April, it's contract signed in April. Unlike existing, where it's contracts in March lead to sales in May. So I think your existing sales are just essentially 2 months behind new sales, and new sales are doing pretty well. If you look at the data nationally, you'll also see car sales turning around pretty quickly. They were terrible, they were awful, they were just disastrous at the end of March, early April, and now I'm surprised that they're pretty good. So you look at homes and autos as two sectors that I think are really going to come back with strong panache going forward, which is, I'll be honest, I would not have bet my life on this 3 months ago. I really wouldn't have. But people are in lockdown. They realize what they want. They realize what they don't have. Maybe they want a new home because it's out of town. It's clean. It's a little bigger, right? Junior's got a place to work, and my husband's got a place to have a home office and whatever it is. And existing homes for the same reason. I want a different place. I want a place further out of town. I want a place higher, a bigger, smaller, something. So this lockdown is there's some real demand, and interest rates are super low. So with rates being super low, that's partly what's driving both autos and housing. Is it, well, it's cheap to borrow. Rates have never been better.
No, this is all, I mean, these are all factors that we're out talking to agents about. Agents are talking to their clients about. One of the questions that we get asked frequently is just about the market segmentation and the idea that we still have very low inventory. And so the luxury market, which we have here, and then the entry, I mean, it's hard to say entry level, Elliot, at 1.3 million. But, we have the entry level market here. And it just, your thoughts really were interesting at the beginning of the pandemic about the differences in the markets. Any thoughts you have? Any of that come to fruition?
I think on the upper end of the market, the fact that the stock market has recovered, and that the high-tech companies like Amazon, okay, they're in Seattle, Microsoft's in Seattle as well, so I'm saying bad names here, I apologize. But Google or Alphabet and so on, Netflix, these companies have done very well for themselves. They have more than proved their way. I think technology, a few months ago, we were talking 4 or 5 months ago about the techlash, right? And people were angry at Facebook and so on. And now suddenly we're realizing we can't live without them. So this has helped their stock valuations, people's perceptions of these companies. Most of them have at least a presence in Silicon Valley, if not headquarters in Silicon Valley. So this has done a world of good for people who have stock, who have these jobs. They're going to keep these jobs. Their options are worth more money. Their companies are growing and things are good. That helps the high end of the market for sure, no question about it. And the builders can afford to build high-end homes. They can't build entry-level homes. It doesn't exist anymore. Right? And on the low end, there's still some concern. There's concern about forbearance. That's going to last for a while, but once you ask for forbearance, you can't get another home. It gets more difficult. The rules are changing and so on. But it's getting a little bit hard. And you've got to keep your job. Now, at this point, if you've kept your job, chances are you're going to keep your job. You've had 40 million job losses, or 42, or numbers today. I think 41 with today's numbers, based on last week's data. So you're probably going to keep your job at this point, but they may not want to lend you money because it's getting harder to get credit. You know, FICO scores are drifting up a little bit because of the fear of making a loan and then having the loan instantly go into forbearance. And then Fannie and Freddie charge you a 500 basis point or 700 basis point fee, essentially. A lender loan, LLPA, I think is the technical term for loan pricing arrangement or something, I'm not sure. So as a result, it's hard to get loans. So I think that's hurting at the low end. So low end is better, but having a hard time at the upper end, I think it's actually pretty decent.
That's really interesting stuff. We saw some numbers this month that kind of showed us that the hardest negative year-over-year impact was in, like, for example, in Santa Clara County, right, was in some of our higher price markets, and the lower price markets actually did really well, just even year-over-year in April, first complete month of shelter in place. So really interesting stuff there. Now, Elliot, one of the audience members asked a question about the stock market. And so, you know, here we see that that plays a big part into it because we often pay over asking, and we call that the sale to list price ratio. I often refer to it as a premium because it is a premium that's paid here. And that's often paid by stock, cashing in stock, you know, the competitive bid. What about the stock market is making it go up, and how does that, you know, potentially benefit our realtors here in the area?
Wow. So the stock market, it's an interesting question because if you look at the overall economy, it's not doing all that well. GDP in Q2 is going to collapse by, on an annualized basis, somewhere between 30 and 40%, which in real decline in GDP in the quarter is somewhere between 7.5%, real decline in GDP in 10%. This is just mind-bogglingly large. Yet at the same time, the stock market's roaring back. The NASDAQ is almost fully recovered, if not recovered. The S&P is close, and the Dow Jones is not far behind. Why? What's going on is the stock market cares about future corporate profits. It doesn't care about the economy. If they're correlated, that's great. But if they're not correlated, with unemployment now getting very high, workers don't have a lot of power over their employer like they had, say, 6 months ago or 9 months ago or 12 months ago. So you could make an easy case that corporate profits next year are going to be pretty decent, right? That's number one. So, you know, they're looking at something fundamentally very, very different. The other thing is, where else are you going to put your money? Interest rates are minuscule. And if you want to save $1,000 a week or $2,000 a month or $500 a month or whatever it is, you don't have a lot of choices. I can't go out and buy a Gauguin. I just don't have $40 million to invest. So the phrase always is, Tina, there is no alternative. Rates are low, nothing else to buy, and the future looks pretty decent. Or you can make a story that the future looks decent. It's a plausible story. It may not come to pass because coronavirus comes back or something, but it's entirely plausible that corporate profits next year are okay. Wage costs don't go up. Sales are doing pretty well. That's a good story. It's a one bad year and we're back to good. Now, it's not that every single stock is doing well either, right? There is some differentiation. You look at firms like Netflix, which are doing well, or Amazon or Google or something, or I guess Alphabet. By contrast, Delta Airlines is not doing quite so well. They're improving a little bit, but they're not. So there is market differentiation going on. But that's critically important where you live, especially because if you pay over asking price, right? The fear is the higher you go above asking price, the less likely the appraisal will come in and cover that extra margin. So you've got to come up with that extra margin in cash because you're not going to be able to borrow that extra little piece. And how are you going to pay for it? Well, in Silicon Valley, more likely than in most other places, it's going to be with stock.
Right. And that's something we've been talking about a lot because premiums have come down a little bit all over the Bay Area because people are getting a little bit of a break, which might be seen as kind of a buyer buyers who are here for the long term might see that 5% year over year and a little less of a premium and think, hey, I'll take 7% and I'll, jump in because my job is pretty secure and, things like that. By the way, I wanted to pause, Mark, and tell everybody if you have a question for Dr. Eisenberg, so, submit it, because we have our friends here, Tom, Peter, Miranda, they're all looking at the questions and feeding them to us. So that was a question from a participant. Thanks for being here with us. And we'll just keep on with questions for you, Dr. Eisenberg, as people kind of formulate their, So, as an agent, they're salespeople, they're relationship builders, and, they're always keeping on top of the market. Are there any factors, indicators, the market information that they should keep their eye on? I mean, obviously a mortgage rate is, something they can go out and tell people about purchasing power, but is there anything for an agent that they should be taking this time to really focus on or tell a good story?
The stock market is really critically important. I hate to dwell on that, because in other markets, it really is not terribly important. You go away from the West Coast, it becomes much less important, but it's a pretty big deal. The other thing that the realtors have to tell clients, buy-side clients, is, look, this is the inventory situation. It's really very tight. You don't have the luxury. I know you don't have the luxury of time to make your decision, but you really don't have time, the luxury of time to make it. You have to know what you're looking for. You have to know when you find it. You have to pounce on it relatively quickly. This is a problem that's endemic across the country. Inventories every month, the last 5 or 6 months, have broken all-time new lows. So it isn't like, these problems, you've got these serious problems, but these problems are pervasive across the economy. Sellers don't want to list their house because they're afraid someone's going to come in and give them coronavirus, right? So and the builders haven't built enough homes for 12 or 13 years. So we're massively underbuilt. We're underbuilt by 4 or 5 million homes. And California is a major reason why.
Yes.
You stopped building homes in California literally in the late 1980s. And then somewhere you forgot how to do it. You used to build 300,000 homes a year, 300. You built large numbers of homes. And then it came down and it never recovered. There was a recession in the late 80s and it never came back.
We ran out of room, Elliot.
You never run out of room. You can always build up. Never run out of room.
Oh, no, for sure. That's really one of the questions was, kind of just keeping with the theme of the general economy is one of our agents is asking if there's any tie to consumer confidence and how consumer confidence plays into how people go out and purchase homes. It's an emotional decision. We talk about this. Thoughts?
There's certainly some issues there. It's not, if you have bad consumer confidence, you're not going to have a great housing market, obviously. But the housing market's also influenced by the employment situation and interest rates. Interest rates, there are only three. When they lower interest rates, the central bank lowers rates, they hope to accomplish a better economy. How? Through auto sales, home sales, and commercial and industrial construction. These are very capital intensive industries. So monetary policy works its way through the housing market. That's a big deal here, right?
Well, I mean, Mark, I'm sorry, were you going to say something? Or
no, go ahead. Well, you mentioned the loan market. How about those jumbo loans that they've Miranda, Michelle knows where I'm going here. That we've been hearing that they don't want to give those jumbo loans anymore. Is that yeah? Okay, there's an answer.
Well, that's it. Moving on.
We're done here.
Yeah, that market really is not working very well right now. You've got to have a good relationship with your banker. The banker who knows your situation, who knows your income, who has your deposits and knows your story to give you a $1 million, $2 million loan. And remember, the central bank has gotten heavily involved in our financial markets of late, because in the middle of March, when the stock market was really going down by 2-3 percentage points a day, that's when the central bank got actively involved to at least get things stabilized and fix the plumbing.
Right.
And they were able to fix the plumbing for Fannie and Freddie loans, right? Ginnie and so on, FHA. But jumbo loans, that's really not their department. There's not much they can really do about that. That's a byproduct of other things going on, and people are just nervous. And yeah, that market, you're absolutely right, it's not functioning well at all.
Right. And yet here we are in the world, in the land of the jumbo loan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're buying a garage spot requires a jumbo loan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it'll be really interesting. I mean, we were talking to agents who were saying, they want 20% down, they want a FICO score that's really high. They want all of these things. They want, information the minute, the ink's dry. I mean, there's so many requirements now, and then they can't even do it. I mean, I wonder when we're going to see the effects of this.
I talk to lenders all the time, and basically all they've got is that they have stacks of files on their desk that are all ready to go, and they're just waiting for permission, not permission, but waiting for an opportunity to get an investor who will pick them off their hands. But they're just sitting around. So it's really tough. Yeah,
Oh,
it really
gosh.
is. That makes it more important to have money from friends, family, stock market, whatever it is. You got to try and scrounge around to get that extra couple 100,000. Easier said than done.
Scrounge around. It's in the couch. Gosh.
You can buy a
Elliot,
home in most of the country for that much money. You know that.
Right.
Right. No,
And
we're
that brings
definitely.
up the point, Michelle, if I could, because one of the questions that's come in is, are we seeing people who are deciding, look, I work for Facebook and they just said I can work from home, so I'm going to move to Bend, Oregon, and and take my money with me. What is your feeling and your observations on that?
I'm afraid okay, there's a couple ways to go with that. One is Bend, Oregon is going to be much better off because people now can live where they want to live. So the need to live in a very high cost city like San Francisco or San Jose or whatever it is goes way down. New York City, Boston, DC, and the East Coast, same thing. DC less so, but you get the point. Yes.
Right.
But the big fear here is once the people don't come into work, you're going to kill me for saying this. I'm really sorry. I don't have to hire Americans. I
Yeah.
can hire anybody from India. I don't know. But if I were HR, I'd be all over hiring people from all over the world at much lower prices. Once you're not coming in, why pay you American wages when I can pay you Indian or Thai or whatever it is?
Right.
So this is a very complicated thing. I mean, kidding aside, this is complicated. We don't know how many people will work from home. And we know that in the long run, you cannot run a company successfully, I don't think, with everybody not working in the office at least some time. You have to get to know your coworkers at some level. As long as you know everybody from before the COVID-19 thing, it's easy to work from home because we have the human capital that we've developed. And Michelle, you know Mark, and you know each other, and you're good to go. But if some new person comes to your team and then another new person comes to your team, it takes more work to get to know them. So at some level, I don't know how you can totally be from home, but you could work maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in the office, or Tuesday and Wednesday, and the other 5 days you're back home. You have one night in a B&B, Airbnb, and that's it. You go back. So, but on the other hand, offices are going to have more spacing between the people. So that's going to require maybe a little bit more space. Maybe you'll have an office not so much in San Jose, but maybe you'll have a second one 20 miles south and 20 miles east or something like that.
Right.
Have satellite offices. No one really knows. There haven't been enough transactions in the office space market to know what the real price is. Markets are designed to determine price discovery. They're not discovering price in many of these cases right now because there's too much uncertainty in this type of thinking. It's good thinking. You don't have the answers.
Right.
It'll be really interesting to watch, Elliot, because we've seen the markets really blow up in the south part of the county, and we've seen people, take on the longer commute only certain times of the week. And, we've seen people go to farther and take trains to buses to cars. I mean, we even ourselves at MLS Listings have, 6 counties, Mark, people in 6 counties, people commuting a couple hours a day, not necessarily every day and things. So it'll be really interesting. I think the hope is that the inventory comes up, right, Dr. Eisenberg? I mean, the idea being that people move and it creates transactions, I think is where these questions, we've gotten several questions on mobility and buying for the inventory is my inference.
The other thing is we're also moving less as a society. Average tenure in your home has been drifting up for some time. It went from 7 years living in your house and then moving. That was maybe 10 years ago the case before the Great Recession. It's been drifting up to 8, 9, 10, 11, if I'm not mistaken now. So that alone reduces inventory. And then the builders don't build because they can't make any money building. They can't get land, they can't get lots, all these reasons. And it's not that they don't want to, they just can't. It's inventory up is going to be a hard push.
Yeah.
It's really a hard thing. Yeah, we'd all love to see it everywhere, but we need to incentivize builders somehow and allow them to build more homes at lower price points. I mean, can they get into Santa Clara somewhere, county, and build a house for, say, $800,000? It would sell like hotcakes, right? But they can't seem to do it.
Right.
Land, permits, time takes too long. So I
red tape. Yeah, the folks from CAR are always talking about that. I think we're just hopeful, Dr. Eisenberg. We have taken up more of your time than we said we would, and I apologize for that. We are just so excited to have you. We have all these questions. As you go, what a champion! I told you guys he was great, and you are living up to it. On the way out, people are wondering about price drops in the Bay Area. What does the end of 2020 look like? Is there a reason to be hopeful? Some of the CAR folks have said, hey, we think by the end we won't see the same volume, but we could see the same prices. We've seen prices marginally drop. Santa Cruz and San Benito counties, as a reminder, Dr. Eisenberg, actually rose month over month. And so we'll take a look at that here in a second with our subscribers. But what are your thoughts on the end of the year? How do things end up in your opinion? And is there a little bit of hope to be had?
There's no question. In terms of price, I think prices stay stable. There's no question about that. I'd be pretty hard pressed to see prices decline. I really would be. I mean, anything can happen, right? I mean, and a lot depends on coronavirus. If coronavirus comes back now because we're opening up and we do it stupidly and we all start kissing each other and hugging each other too much and licking the floor when we shouldn't do that, that might bring things back, and that would be really bad. We also might have coronavirus come back in the fall when the flu season returns. And the epidemiologists keep telling us that this is a distinct possibility and a reasonable likelihood. And if that comes back, that would scare us too. But short of that, and short of government doing something or not doing something stupid, which is always possible because it's Congress, but it looks like they're going to come through with more money and another stimulus package. Not stimulus, but a survival bill, as you will, not bailout, just keeping us going in this coma state. Right? If they come through with more money on that front, I don't see a price decline. I really don't. And I see volume slowly improving a little bit. I mean, March and April really were the bottom here in terms of signed contracts. It will get better as time goes on. How much better we can argue, but it should certainly get better because those were the worst, by far the worst ones out there. Don't look at that as the likely scenario. Look at it more as a general improvement from then going forward for the next 6 or 7 months. Whether we're at 80% or we were, or 90 or 70, I don't really know yet. But we'll be approaching something resembling normalcy by the end of the year, getting closer and closer to it. Because the economy should be getting better at pretty decent pace. Unemployment should be coming down pretty pleasantly. That means underwriters know that these people who are applying for houses have a job, they're going to keep their job, and so on. So this is a very unusual recession, remember. And if you look at recessions, I'm going off the farm slightly here, but it's worth it. If you look at the last couple of recessions that we've had, not this one, but the prior one, the housing bust, that was private sector overreach. Right. The 2000 bust was, again, private sector overreach. We were too much .com, too much land cables and fiber in the middle of the street. That was bad. In 1990, we had a recession. That was generally the result of too much commercial construction going on, right? There was savings and loan problems also, but mostly too much commercial construction going on. When you have an internally generated problem like that, those recessions are pretty anemic. Those recoveries are pretty anemic, I'm sorry. That they're jobless, they're kind of limp, they're not vigorous. By contrast, if you look at the recoveries from the 1973, the OPEC shock, those are externally generated. They had nothing to do with the domestic economy. Those have pretty robust recoveries. Now, there was also inflation back in the 70s because of bad monetary policy, but that's something else. I tend to think this recession we're having now is more like those early ones from the 70s and the early 80s. It was nothing to do with domestic economy. Our economy was generally doing okay. There were some imbalances here and there. Yeah, sure. Too much non-financial corporate debt and whatever, but nothing grossly inept, just nothing grossly out of whack. And as such, we can recover much more quickly than we have recovered in the 2008, 2000, and 1990 recessions. So we should recover more quickly, and that should be to the benefit of housing, no question.
Wow, that's exciting news. No, I love it. I
can background as to why.
Yeah, no, and that's what they're, really looking for, Dr. Eisenberg. And I think people who, this is their livelihood, this is so important to what's happening here in the Bay Area, and those kinds of tidbits are really helpful to remind people whose expectations might be off, or sellers sitting on the fence or things. It's really important to note those and maybe do some research on that and make sure that you're well aware, because most of the brokers we know, Mark, that we talk to are very excited about the end of the year and say, hey, there's no reason we can't really see this come back quite a bit. So
yeah, right. Again, we can argue how much it comes back from.
Right.
If March is down here, the worst. March, April's the worst. And if February was here, the best. Do we end up the year here, here? I don't know, but we're not going to stay down here. That's for sure.
Yeah.
There's too much good news, barring Corona return. I think that's
right.
Yeah.
And we've already seen that trajectory, even in the last week or so.
Yeah.
That line is going up. I learned that word this morning from Michelle's econ class I went to. But before you go, I want to talk about econ70.com, because Tom Durezzo has been, he got us all hooked. So we'd like to move that to our subscribers as well. So what is econ70.com?
So it's my website, but it's more known for, I put out every day 70 words on economics. No graphs, no ads, no charts, no links, no photos. I'm not wasting your time. It's 70 words or less, literally, I promise. Like 3 sentences and you're done. It takes you 30 seconds to read it. You can get it by going to a website, econ70.com, or I made this little convenience sign.
I love it.
You can
love it.
bow tie. See, bow tie, wait
Bow
for it,
tie.
bow tie. And you can text it to the 5-digit number 22828. And then you'll get a prompt or an email address. Right? And you'll hear from me every day until you die. And if you die, you know you'll hear from me there too, because we are dismal scientists.
Exactly. Yeah.
Economics, relatively easy, relatively understandable, and so on and so forth. So yes,
Wonderful.
thank you. Please sign up.
I like
That's
him
fantastic.
a lot.
I love it. And to recap, Mark, he said no coronavirus coming back. We're going to end the year at 100%. What else did I'm just joking. Dr. Eisenberg, thank you so much.
God's ears.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Dr. Eisenberg. We kept you way longer than we said we would. I know that the subscribers really appreciate it. We really appreciate it. And we're hopeful that we'll flash that a couple more times for our subscribers who can handle 70 words. I think we all could. These days, we're home, we're captive.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so we'll flash that again. But thank you for joining us. Thanks for staying on so long. And we really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you both. Michelle, Mark, thank you. Have a lovely afternoon.
Dr. Eisenberg, thank you very much.
Yeah. So
Bye-bye,
Mark, if you have some more time, we can go ahead and stay on here and maybe answer some of the other questions, or even just talk about, the market and talk about some of the things that we are out doing these days.
Absolutely. We talked earlier. We do our homework here. You've got some charts, because you don't go anywhere without charts. I've seen you at Safeway before. You have your charts. What are the numbers telling us right now? I mean, we just made a brief reference to the daily reports. The Oculus daily reports are showing that trajectory is moving upward on a week-by-week basis for about the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, we are. I mean, I'm going to share my screen here and make sure you guys can see what I'm looking at here. Just give me 1 second. I thought we would talk maybe a little bit about what Dr. Eisenberg said in terms of some of the good news that he was talking about. Let's look at this, so you can let me know if you can see that screen share there.
I'm seeing the presenter view now, but you're making your way there. While Michelle's getting that together, I really like the part about, Northern California having a faster recovery than Southern California, because come on, Giants versus Dodgers, 49ers versus Rams, come on, it's NorCal. So I like that comment a lot. I think that we are going to take a little longer maybe to come out of it than maybe other portions. But as Dr. Eisenberg said, we went, we tucked ourselves into our homes early as compared to many parts of the United States. And, that effort has kept the, maybe some of the danger down in the state of California. But we're coming now back, right? Our retail stores are opening up. I might be able to have sushi one day soon, I'm missing my sushi out there. So Michelle, you've got some stuff up. Oh, It's back down. You're giving me that look.
Well, technology, I'm sharing a PowerPoint, and why will it not, oh, isn't this fun? Live events, Mark. I really recommend them. Hopefully, is that better? Are you
No,
guys seeing the?
there, that's beautiful.
Oh, wonderful. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Sorry about that. Yeah. So, some of the things that Dr. Eisenberg was saying is captured in our dailies. So Aculist is providing daily information. And so this chart really captures it. So this is as of yesterday, Mark. And what we're looking at here is, data through yesterday that shows you the new listings, sold listings, canceled and withdrawn. It shows you pre-shelter in place. It shows you what happened. And what we're focusing on right now is just that right-hand side of the graph where we're seeing new listings come on and we're seeing sold listings start to come up and withdrawn and canceled, definitely leveling out. And so we've been all over talking to people about this, Mark, to say, hey, there is some recovery here. It's what Elliot was talking about, Dr. Eisenberg, about in terms of recovery. And so we're already starting to see it. We're not back to where we were, but we're starting to see things around the trajectory is certainly up.
Right. And some counties are stronger in some factors than others, but that's some of the uniqueness of our 5-county diversity we've got, from the heart of Silicon Valley to the golf greens of Pebble Beach, from, literally the fields of the Salinas Valley to the condos of San Mateo County. Right?
It sounds like a song from sea to shore.
Well,
no,
I'm
this. Think about the county. I threw up this slide. I have it. Look at how big it is and how diverse it is. And you're talking coastal, you're talking inland, and you're talking farm, and you're talking tech, and you're talking all sorts of things. And I really, do see the diversity. In fact, one of the things we talked to Dr. Eisenberg about before he came on was it's so diverse. It's really hard to put anything specific about what's happening in the Bay Area, because he said even between the counties, we see such a differentiation. Now, right. Some of the information we presented to him this morning, just to make sure he was really up to date on what's going on in the area. And this is one of them: change to contingent, change to pending. This is one of the slides available on the dailies, Mark. But this shows you again how the change to contingent, change to pending, those are what's moving into it. So not the total number, but we're the activity, and we're really seeing it increase, and we're really excited to see that. I know our agents are really excited to see that too. And so that's why, you could make a statement like he did, Dr. Eisenberg, and say, hey, I think that by the end of the year, we could really, see some real improvements. And how do you do that? Because you're starting to see these kinds of numbers again. And, right. Hopefully resume, have the confidence resume in some of our clients. So
Michelle,
very exciting stuff.
For those of us that, I made it out of the statistics class, but just by the hair in our chinny chin chins, may look at this like me and go, well, that looks like an EKG. You look at it and see a whole different story. Tell me if I'm wrong. On the left-hand side, that's the beginning of SIP, right?
Yes.
And the orange line represents sort of what the amount of listings in the pipeline heading towards a sale. And
these are all, and these are change depending.
Yeah. And we drain the pipeline there for a second, right in, the beginning of April, first week of April. And now the pipeline's starting to fill back up again as the transactions start to generate. This is actually good news.
It is good news. It's a really interesting. I love that Dr. Eisenberg was talking about some of the factors underneath this, because we go out and we hit the numbers, and he was talking about some of the things that happen behind the scenes and some of the reasons why. So like the stock market, and his great explanation about why you keep an eye on the stock market, or how that separates itself from how people use consumer confidence and all of those things. I loved it. And did you know he said we're going to keep our jobs? So
best
that go unnoticed.
Right there.
I was just like, yay, everybody. But he talked about a lot of these things. Let's look at data so far, right? So Mark, this is median sale price in 2020. These are all 5 counties. Monterey is purple, San Benito is blue, San Mateo is that top line in the green, Santa Clara is kind of that navy blue, and Santa Cruz is that red line in the middle. And so we see, San Mateo County always at the top end of the prices, followed by Santa Clara. But this is so far. This even has May on the right-hand side. Now it's a little early. We still have 4 more days
Is this
to
like a
go.
teaser? What is
It's
this?
a teaser. Yeah, you know, because we'll be out with the videos in about, 10, 15 days or so,
Right.
once the data normalizes and we can get that all together for you guys. But just to show you some of the relative strength and recovery, Santa Cruz and San Benito were up April from March in the
Right.
middle of a pandemic. You see Santa Cruz retreat a little bit, but now you see San Mateo recovering a bit. You see Santa Clara still kind of holding its ground. I mean, these will change. This is data as of a day ago, so the data is probably about 40 some hours old, but we've already seen San Mateo come down a bit. We've seen Santa Clara
Mhm.
come down a bit. We've seen them adjust, and they will continue to do that.
Right.
But you know, this is the kind of information when my colleague Tom and I talked to Dr. Eisenberg, you know, we are presenting this and saying, how do you explain this? What's going on? You know, he is always adding such good flavor
Right.
to what's going on out there. Yeah.
And what's great is he was able to bring in, the topic of New Orleans and Seattle, and his perspective is the national level. We like to focus down on it, literally down to our school district, right down to our MLS area, is where our perspective times. But his news was good. We may have to put up with traffic on Highway 101, but we're in Silicon Valley, and our friends, our agents, clients, for the most part, are going to come out of this employed because they are in Silicon Valley, and they are going to be able to, to stay in the marketplace or buy up. And I know a lot of parents, who are looking for that 4th bedroom because they're going to, they figure they're going to have to be doing homeschool, or like me, turn one of those bedrooms into a broadcast studio. It's just exciting to see. It was forced on us, but the change that's taking place, and your numbers, especially on the daily basis at aculist.com, provide the observation to gain the insight to be relevant to your buyers and sellers right now. I think
Yep.
one of the somebody in the Q&A area was saying that they love the dailies, would love to see it for county by county, and I know things, we're working towards that. But someone else asked, okay, where do they find those slides? Where are they going to get those slides?
Yeah, no, that's a great one. The Aculus Daily. So there's a couple ways. So this is something that is on aculus.com. So we have a site. We have our own website, aculus.com, and we have the slides there. Now it's /Aculus-daily-stats. Ooh,
Okay.
the tongue twister. And the reason we put the entire URL is because we don't have a link to it on our homepage. So this is a public website, but we're trying to keep this for our subscribers. So we're not making it obvious to the world. We want you to take this to your clients and be the expert. So it's Aculus Daily Stats, or Mark, the easy thing to do would be to go into Pro and see that Aculus Daily Market Stats. It'll take you directly to the daily PowerPoint. You can
Right.
download it, or you can sign up to get, if you're not sick of me yet, you can sign up to get a daily email from me that has a link to the slides. And so we're trying to keep people updated.
Right.
And it's really interesting because these kinds of events, Mark, and going out to brokers' office, talking to agents, is how we know what's important to you. So for example, my colleague Tom and I have recently been talking about, well, with withdrawals and TFTs kind of really evening out, maybe that's something we provide once a week, but maybe we need to start looking at, active homes on the market compared to last year. Where were we last year? We heard that in a broker meeting today. We're about
Right.
30% down. So maybe there's some different data that as we move out of this, as we start opening up, is more important to our subscribers than had been before. So we're always trying to change it up and bring you, daily impactful information. So if there's anyone out there that has suggestions on how we can better serve with this kind of information, we're happy to do it. And this is where you get it.
Yeah, this is one of those avenues, and certainly the Q&A area down below at the bottom of everybody's screen. Absolutely. We capture those and we take them back to the lab, and we sort of dissect them as to, what was asked that we couldn't answer, or what was recommended, what was suggested that we can really consider to keep the information current, keep it relevant, because, we don't get to hear the question directly from the buyer or seller. It gets interpreted through our subscriber. But boy, keep those requests coming. so that we can continue to round out the product for you.
Yeah, Dr. Eisenberg, he's such a great, oh, he's a hoot. So a couple more questions have come in that I just wanted to address from our viewers here, and I'm so glad you guys have joined us. Thank you so much. One of the questions came in about how to advise buyers, on the market. So, should they wait for a housing bubble to pop, it says, or, stock market increase, interest rates dropping further. And so this would normally, Mark, be territory that I would not go to. But with Dr. Eisenberg recently talking to Tom and I don't want to quote him here, but we have had discussions about this, and many of the CAR, economists, Leslie Appleton Young from CAR, love her, or NAR folks are saying, it's not a bubble because there wasn't any kind of overrun in some of what the pricing was, or people bidding things up artificially. There wasn't lending, the default score has never been lower. Well, pre-pandemic, so this is a different animal, but pre-pandemic. And so we're seeing signs of a real significant health in the market, and specifically in the Bay Area. And so to think that this is a bubble, in their opinion, is not so. Now, in terms of convincing, buyers, or sellers, that's going to be a tough one. But there may be such a demand, people looking to take advantage of this little percentage off. We talked to Dr. Eisenberg about that today. Would you take the 5%, maybe 3 to 5% off, and maybe a little less in the premium and have less competition? Because we're seeing things ramp up. Maybe that draws out the buyers, and there you go with the prices again. So in terms of interest rates getting lower, there's not been any indication from anyone at CAR, NAR, or Elliot himself that says, they're rock bottom. They're very, very low. So he didn't think that would happen, but, to promote fiscal, to enhance what's happening, you can't necessarily rule it out. But he just said that, if people aren't convinced to buy with this kind of this kind of an interest rate, I'm not sure what another, percent of a percent will do for them. So those are some questions that we got in from some of the subscribers, which comes from answers that we've talked to Dr. Eisenberg and some of the other folks about before. So keep those questions coming. We're trying to answer as many as we can, Mark.
I think one of the things that we have seen, certainly over the last, a couple of weeks that we've been out on the road, as they say, from the comfort of our home offices. But I'm encouraged that the veteran agents and brokers out there all agree with one thing. There is absolute opportunity for professional real estate people to do well in this marketplace and coming out of this marketplace. You just have to know the numbers and be able to respond, accordingly. Certainly that's where Oculus kicks in, but I'm encouraged that the veterans of the industry locally are thinking positive.
Yeah, I think there's some reasons to think positive. We looked at median prices here. I'm going to show one more chart because I can't leave without showing more than one chart. Everybody's probably dropping off of this call as quickly as possible. But, just to show you, in fact, new listings, to show you where we are so far. I think these are a little bit behind. We see, Santa Clara and San Mateo and San Benito, Santa Cruz, Monterey again. So these are, you can see the legend there in the top left-hand corner. And these are a couple days old, and I can tell you they've already increased. But to show you where we were in March and to show you now how we're climbing back up. But what I do know is that when I looked at the data this morning, in Santa Clara County, at least, it looks like we're going to have as many new listings as in May as we do in April and did in April. And so there's some real signs to be hopeful. I think Elliot talking about how at the end of the year, we could see ourselves being really back to some degree and close to where, normal is in terms of pricing and potentially some volume and things of that nature is a real reason to have our agents be excited about what is to come, given how tough this year has been for everybody, for sure. So,
right. I think the key thing you said, Michelle, is keep us informed. Let us know what you're looking for. I think some of the greatest suggestions that have come to MLS listings are directly from the subscribers.
Yeah, absolutely. And we continue to make, yeah. So I wanted to point out, I mean, I'm not doing a full market update here. This was about Elliot. This was Dr. Eisenberg. This was about getting some economic background on what's happening here in the Bay Area market. But I did want to mention to everybody that, you know, while we're talking about things generally and how we're talking about, you know, the 5 counties, for those of you who are interested in city data and talking about, you know, places where you farm, where your, you know, clients are invested, you know, go to YouTube, because not only are the Mark and myself videos available there on the MLS Listings channel, but you can see your information by county, and you can also pick up training tips and tricks. So every time we go out, we talk about this to people, and I think they seem surprised that this exists, but it's a great resource, Mark. I'm excited to share this with the people on the call.
Yeah, and definitely when you get there, subscribe to it. I always say subscribe to the YouTube channel so that when something new comes out, you don't have to go find YouTube. YouTube comes and finds you to let you know it's there.
Yeah, everybody's
anything else, Michelle, that we can pass on to our people?
Gosh, Mark, I mean, it's man, I'm just, my head is kind of swimming with some of the things that he said. I mean, you know, the ideas about stock markets, the idea about inventory, not necessarily, you know, continuing to be maybe a question, because we've had low inventory. He didn't seem to signal that inventory by any means was going to jump up. His take on the mobility of the Bay Area worker and how, you know, people may or may not be going. I mean, oh gosh, Mark, it was just too much excitement.
And the story continues to be written.
Yeah, it does.
Some material to track here for a while. Hey, before we sign off, I do want to, you know, thank our road crew, our roadies, who are out there, and you know, that's Tom Dorezzo, that's Peter Ganem, that's John Aquino, that's Dave Scalora, who's out there doing our video capture, and our director Miranda Perry, who keeps us all going in the right direction. I want to thank you for, on behalf of the MLS subscribers, for bringing Dr. Eisenberg on. Not only what a character, but wow, what a lot of great information. You're going to have to watch this video over again to make sure you caught it all down the road. So
it is. I hope we didn't interrupt them too much, Mark, and get in everyone's way. And remember to get your 70 words.
Yep.
Would be bow tie, BOWTIE, and then the number. So you text bow tie to 22828.
Yep.
So that's bow tie to 22828. And so that would be a great way to support him. He's been a wonderful asset for MLS Listings and Aculus, and we lured him in and we kept him long, and I'm so glad we had so many questions answered, questions from the audience. So thank you guys for your participation. It made it a fun event, Mark.
Exactly. All right, folks, thank you for being with us at MLS Listings Live. We're going to be back in a couple weeks, going to bring some new tech to you, some new things that the design team has been working on. You're going to want to see that one, because we're going to make your life a little easier. That's what we try and do around here. So, Michelle, thank you for being with me. Always appreciate it. Please come back and be my guest host once again sometime.
I don't know, Mark. I will not. Like Elliot, I will not. We'll have to see.
We'll have to look into
I
that.
will tell.
Okay.
No, but thanks for having me, Mark. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.